Welcome back to the channel, everybody. This is Kodeations. Today we're going to come at you with another video. We're going to do a video on Idle Legend. First things first, one thing I want to get out of the way in this video is the redemption codes. If you're here just for the redemption codes, the two redemption codes that are out there right now, I'm going to list. I'm going to show you exactly how to add them into your account for anybody that is new. This technically should work on both iOS and Google Play. I think because on my phone I'm playing on iOS or an Apple phone, and then I also play on BlueStacks, which is are done by Google. So both codes work on both accounts. Secondly, we're going to look at some of the legendary and epic heroes to keep an eye out for new people playing the game and newcomers. It's just something that I feel their abilities are really good, and it's something some of these heroes with them being legendary and epics will carry you to the end game. And then another thing we're going to look at is some of the synergies and some of the formations and just good practices and bad practices when it comes to that for a lot of new people in this game. So without further ado, let's check it out. All right, welcome back, guys. So first things first, like I said in the intro here, we are going to redeem these awesome, lovely codes to get the rewards. So currently on this account, I have already done so. So I'm actually going to, well, I guess I shouldn't switch servers right now, but it doesn't matter. We'll go ahead and just do it anyways. I'll show you what it would look like, and then we'll go from there. But so first things first, you got to click on your profile in the top left-hand corner. As you can see here, mine is the Hunter Van Helsing, I think is his name. So clicking on here, it's going to have in the bottom right hand corner redeem code. So right here where I'm clicking, when you click redeem code, it's going to pop up this window. If you're on BlueStacks or on the computer, you can obviously use your keyboard to type. If you're not and you're on a mobile phone, then you can type with the keyboard that pops up. So for the first things first, the first code is going to be idle as the title in the game, and then it's going to be 888. Now, when I hit this confirm button, it's going to tell me that I already redeemed this code, and it's going to tell me the date, which obviously is not today's date, but that's, what it's, oh no, it is. Okay, so this, I don't know what this is, but anyways, so this is going to be the first code. I think you get a couple different things. You get some diamonds, gold, and then I think some shards to summon a unit. For the second code, the second code is actually going to be thumb up. Notice it is thumb up, not thumbs up. I think that's just a language barrier thing, but it's thumb up 10K. So when you click that one is actually going to give you 1,000 diamonds of in-game currency. That is huge. That's a really good code to use. And like I said, diamonds are always welcome. Everything that's free is always welcome when it comes to mobile games. So take advantage of those codes. If you have any questions, or if those codes aren't working for you for some reason, or maybe you're watching this video later on when those codes are expired, hopefully we have some new codes and updated codes that we can share with you in the future. So be sure to comment or DM me if you have any questions on those. But those are the two codes that are out there right now that I know of. I don't know of any other codes. If there are more codes to come, I will be sure to feature them in another video. So if that's it, you only came for the redemption codes, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below. And then obviously hit that notification bell so you get a notification every time I drop a video. Peace. See you guys later. And for those that want to get into the rest of the video, let's take a look at it. So looking at this here, in the game, you just started out, you're not really sure what's going on. You see a lot of things in the menu. You've got, so many characters and heroes at your hand. Maybe you haven't really done a whole lot of summonings yet in the game. Either way, I'm here to help you take a look at that and see exactly what heroes and stuff that are good, and then also kind of like understanding the formation on the battle, and then also the synergies. So all right, let's dive right in. So first things first, if you've hit the challenge button once or twice or multiple times, depending on how much you've actually played, you have probably noticed a few different things. You've noticed that when you drag a unit on the field. You can't go past, obviously, half the board. Another thing that you've noticed is the area of effect or the range of that unit, which is the blue aura or circles, like the blue highlighted squares that you can see on the screen. That is actually the range of the character. The other thing you might notice are these squares to the left-hand side and the right-hand side. Just for a rule of thumb, so the squares to the left-hand side are going to be your buffs, or what they call synergies in this game. The squares to the right are actually going to be the enemies' buffs or synergies in this game, whichever one you feel comfortable or calling it. It's buffs in other games, it's synergies in this game. But that just gives you an example. So to the left is going to be yours, to the right is going to be the enemies. So let's take a look at some of these synergies and exactly what they mean. So for instance, I guess we'll stay right here first, but as you can see here, there's two different types of synergies in the game. You have the race synergies or faction synergies, again, whichever word you're comfortable with using. And then you also have class synergies, which, you know, your warriors and your hunters and your mages and dragons, things like that. So basically, taking a look at the first one here that I've got deployed, the number in the top right hand corner of each one of these synergies or buffs is actually how many units you have of that specific synergy. So for instance, I have 3 humans on the field, and that highlights those 3 here. So I've got the Van Helsing, I've got the Knight, and then I also have the Priest here. However, how you understand these synergies is for humans. If you place 2 humans on the field, you will unlock this buff or synergy, which is all allied humans recover 40 points of energy per second. So just a small little buff, but it works well. If all synergies have 2, 4, and 6. So if you place 2 units from that synergy, if you place 4 units from that synergy, or if you place 6 units on the battlefield from that synergy, that is how you unlock the different tiers respectively. So as you can see here, I have 3 units. I'm only getting the unit for the first 2 units that I have played. That third one does not matter, but if I was to play a 4th human, you will see that I will get this the second tier synergy. So that's something to keep in mind. We'll get into best practices for that in a second. But another thing, like I mentioned, was the class synergy as well. So as you see here, hunters. So hunters obviously is not a race. The races are hunters and elves and orcs and beast and stuff. So this hunter is actually a class, and so you also have class synergies. So as you can see here, I have two hunters on the field. I have the Van Helsing and I also have Medusa. The icon on their names that is labeled hunter is the little green bow and arrow. So that is something to keep in mind, that you also have class synergies and you have race synergies or faction synergies. So you can take advantage of both of those, which is really nice. So I've got 2 of them. I've got this perk unlocked, which is increase all allied hunters' normal attack damage by 30%. So that's just a natural 30% buff. That's going to be huge. That's something, like I said, again, just to keep in mind when you were laying out your formation. Priest are a little bit different. Priest actually only have 2 buffs or 2 synergies. They've got for playing 1 priest and playing 3 priest. So for the playing 1 priest, I increase all ally units max health by 10%. So it's just a nice little 10% health bonus to all of my units by playing a priest on the field. Secondly, obviously you're going to always want to play a priest of some sort or healer of some sort, because just like with a lot of these battle or games or idle games in general, it's going to be all about formation. And so that's going to be huge when it comes to actually healing your units and keeping your units alive longer in order to allow them to do more damage. So just keep that in mind going forward. That's a little bonus side tip. As we can see here, the enemy has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units on the field, and we can take a look at their buffs here. So they actually have the undead buff, so increase enemies physical damage received by 10%, and they've got these 2 units that are undead. That's why they classify for that buff. Again, just a damage reduction buff, nothing too too crazy. Again, we're only level 6 right here on this battle, so it's not a big deal. They also are hitting the beast buff, which grants all allied beast normal attacks a 30% chance to cause bleeding effect for 3 seconds. Bleeding deals fixed damage, and bleeding units lose 1% of the max HP per second. So a nice little buff there. It gives them a little bit of a damage over time added to their abilities, even if their abilities do not do bleeding effect. So that's kind of nice, and they qualify because of these 2 units that they are using. Now, so that kind of gives you a little bit of a rundown. If I went too fast, feel free to slow the video down. Otherwise, DM me or message me down in the comments, and I will try to answer any questions that you have going forward with this. But it's pretty self-explanatory. The more we play and do videos, you guys will get a better understanding of kind of how these synergies and stuff work. So anyway, so that's the first thing with the synergies. Let's leave here. Let's take a look at some of the actual synergies in the game that you can actually achieve. So by hitting this little heroes box down here, you can click this little what I would like to call an archive, but basically it's a gallery, so it shows you all of the heroes. It also shows you the synergies. So if you click on synergies, the first on the top couple rows are actually your race synergies. So as you can see here, we have hero, we have elf, we have aquatic, orc, undead, beast, dwarf, goblin, demon, element, dragons, and giants. Now that is going to be it for the actual race or faction synergies, but feel free to click on them. You can review the synergies that you can unlock by playing 2, 4, or 6 characters of that same faction or race. This is just something very important to know, especially with playing this game for formations and also to achieve maximum damage or tank output, or whatever you're going for, I guess, for your team comp. But getting to know these are going to be huge. Playing different abilities is going to be huge. Knowing your characters is going to be huge. So then again, like I said, you can take advantage of race or faction buffs. Another thing you can take advantage of is the class buffs or class synergies. So as we said before, so playing warriors, playing 2 warriors, 4 warriors, or 6 warriors, which I do not advise playing 6 warriors because that's a lot of melee damage. But anyways, utilizing these here, again, you will get those synergies. You'll get additional buffs. So again, assassins, the same thing. 2, 4, and 6 grants all allied assassins normal attack a 10% chance of critical hitting with 2.8 times of damage. So that's really cool. So just another, like I said, a little side buff. Again, something very, very, very important to not neglect. You want to make sure that you are hitting those class buffs or synergies and those race synergies as well. You want to make sure that you're hitting both of those at the same time as much as possible. So if you've got, like I said, sometimes, using those synergies, and a hero's skill, at a 3-star or 4-star might trump, using that one legendary because it breaks your synergies. So that's something to keep in mind. It adds a little bit more of strategical formations on the board and strategical play style. So keep that in mind. Yeah, it's just a really good practice. So as you can see here, we've got a lot of different ones. We've got priest, spell eaters, craftsmen, warlocks, druids, mages, knights, hunters, assassins, and warriors. So that's going to be your comps. I really like how they show you when you click on these synergies. They show you which heroes actually fit that category that can receive that synergy buff. That's kind of nice, especially when you're doing team comps later game and you're actually trying to min-max, all of your units to make sure you're getting the maximum damage output for the heroes that you're using. That's gonna be huge. So just getting to know these synergies is gonna be one really important thing that I recommend for all new players. If you've got time, read up on some of these guys. And go from there. So that's going to be, I guess, it for synergies and formations for now. Let's take a look at some of the heroes that I would actually deem to be, I want to call them top tier heroes, but the game is actually really super early, so I don't want to make a claim, to these being the actual top best heroes in the game. But I think these are really important heroes. They're going to consist of legendary and epic heroes. I think these are important heroes to take a look at and keep your eye on. If you end up pulling them early game, awesome, congrats. that's awesome for you. And then secondly, like I said, if you don't end up pulling them, don't sweat it. You know, there's other heroes in the game that are going to still help you progress. These are not, you know, needed or absolutely, you know, a deal breaker. So first on the list we got is Angelina. So Angelina up here at the top, she is part of the Enlightenment, I think is what the actual faction is, or race, not race, faction. So she's an Enlightenment hero. So clicking her here, like I said, she's going to be super, super good. I've got her listed at the top, and the reason why I do is because of her ability. So she has a Seraph form, so the cooldown is really long. It's a 60-second cooldown, so I mean, ideally your fights aren't going to last, I don't think they will. I mean, I think maybe 2 minutes at most might be the most for later game fights, but so ideally she's probably going to use her ability once per fight, but she basically transfers into a Seraph, which then gives her full health. So even if she's low on health, that gives her full health, and then it's within the 4 seconds after transformation, she receives a damage reduction by 60%. And it increases her attack by 32%, and it also deals 75% splash damage, which if you don't know what splash damage is, that's an AoE effect basically around her that also does damage. Now, I don't even have to explain why this is, you know, huge. I mean, this is just a massive, you know, I don't know, skill, I guess is what I could say. I mean, the fact that she's transferring, you know, transforming into a Seraph and gets full health is just huge. And not only that, like I said, I mean, she's getting a 60% damage reduction taken, so that's the 60% less damage taken that she's taking in, even if she's getting smacked. And then she's buffing her own attack by 32%, and then she is then on top of that doing an AoE damage radius. That's just, it's massive. That's why she made number 1 on my list. So the second unit that we're going to look at is Suburbia. Again, another really good unit. Another reason why, or a reason for him that we like, is 2 things. One, his cooldown is pretty low, so it is a 12-second cooldown. And the biggest thing with him though is the fact that he has the flexibility to be anywhere on the board. So he kind of neglects the formation, you know, like setup of the enemy. So he's unpredictable, I guess is what the term I'd like to use. So he chooses and charges to a point on the chessboard, dealing attack damage to enemies in its path. So as it hits and does the charge and attack, it does initial damage to those enemies. And then the path that the charge, you know, that the Suburbia takes, it is ignited with fire, and then it continuously does damage in that path to enemies for 3 seconds. Now that is huge because it's doing overtime damage to the enemies. It's creating a path, you know what I mean, which is basically a barrier on the board, that if enemies cross through it or stand in it, they're constantly taking damage. And then not only that too, like I said, he's very unpredictable. So that allows him, you know, the flexibility on the board, you know, to get past enemy lines or to wherever he wants to be. And it makes it harder for the enemy to, whether it's a player or an NPC or a computer, it makes it really hard for them to kind of predict, you know, going into the fight. You know, they see your lineup, you see your lineup, and it makes it kind of hard to predict exactly where he's going to charge. So that's just something to keep in mind. That's why he's a really good unit, and that's why I featured him as my second on the list. Third on the list we're going to do is going to be Tempest. Now, one could argue that he could be 3 or 4 on the list based on the next hero that I'm going to feature, but basically the reason why Tempest is going to be a really good unit is because he does a AoE effect damage like in a radius, and so he makes a mist of a radius of 420. The mist deals fixed damage equal to 4.4% of Tempest's max HP per second to enemies inside it, and the mist lasts for 8 seconds. So we have an 18-second cooldown on the skill. It's a 420 radius of just basic, it says a mist, but it's basically a cloud on the board that is going to do continuous damage, and it scales off of Tempest's health, so that you're going to want to stack health on this guy and attack on this guy, but basically it scales on his health, and and it lasts for 8 seconds. So you're just creating a massive damage pool basically for 8 seconds on the board, and anybody in that thing is going to get, you know, tore to shreds with damage. So that's why he's a good unit. I see a lot of players playing him. I decided to look into him, do a little bit of a review on him. So that's why he made the list. Looking at the next hero is Kodeations. So the reason why I was saying one could argue that he could be third, or Tempest could be third, is because they kind of have similar effects. But the difference being is Divine Retribution is actually on a 15-second cooldown, but however, it's guaranteed to hit all enemies on the board. So the range factor does not play a part. So on Tempest's skill, it actually does 420 is actually the radius. Now with Divine Retribution, it does not matter because it is guaranteed, as you can see here, to do damage to all enemies on the chessboard. Whenever the skill kills one enemy, it increases Kodeations' attack by 20% for 4 seconds. So basically, he's guaranteed to hit all the enemies on the chessboard. If it kills one of them, it buffs his attack by 20% for 4 seconds. So that's really, really nice, especially, you know what I mean, if he kills somebody, because he's getting that 20% bonus to his damage even after the Divine Retribution goes off. For additional 4 seconds, he's doing 20% more damage. It's actually really, really nice. So one could argue he could be third or fourth. So that's Kodeations. So the next one is, I believe, in the next section here. Let's find where is he at? I can't remember where all these guys are located. There's so many of them. Yeah, right here. So Gwynlum is kind of how I guess I would pronounce that in English. But basically, what's really nice about him is, again, he does an area of effect damage, but he's got a really special talent. So 15-second cooldown on the skill. Rock Blast summons a large stone that smashes the ground for 2 seconds, smashes the ground after 2 seconds, does AoE effect damage to enemies within radius of 300, so smaller than Tempest's 420 range, and stuns them for 2 seconds. Now, why is his skill awesome? Right here, it stuns units. So because it stuns 2 units, a stun is massive when it comes to games, auto battle games, because the computer doesn't know what to do. So when you stun a target, boom, it can't use its abilities, it can't attack, it can't do anything, and it's just getting smacked for a total of 2 seconds. Now, you might be thinking 2 seconds isn't that long. You're right, it's not that long, but in a game where matches are lasting 60 seconds or lasting a total of like a maximum of 2 minutes, 2 seconds is actually a lot, and especially with it stunning. So with this stunning effect stacked onto other effects from other heroes that you have that could be doing different additional damage, it's awesome. It's just a really, really good skill. Plus, I really like him from Idle War Legendary Heroes, another game that they have chose to use this character in. His skills are obviously different in that game, but carried over to this game is a nice addition. So there's that guy. Another dude we're going to take a look at, I believe. Where is he at? Here he is. So Nada. So one of the things with this guy, so this dude is what I would classify as a single target nuke. If you're familiar with playing any other games, he basically just does, I mean, for lack of better words, big dick damage. So this guy, I mean, looking at his ability here, so now keep in mind, by the way, all of these features that I'm showing you are their skills maxed out. So if you look here on the top right, their levels are actually 250 when you look in the gallery, so 240. So this is not going to be what his hero or his ability, all their abilities are going to be right away, but that's what they're going to morph into the later game. So I'm just reviewing them for later purposes. But back to his skills. Each consecutive attack on the same enemy increases attack speed and attack. The attack speed is increased by 20% every time, stacking for a total of 5 times, and the attack is increased by 11% every time, up to 10 times. Guys, these multipliers are massive. 11% times 10, 20% times 5 for attacking the same unit. Now that's massive. Now you might be thinking, well, what if the unit dies? Okay, well, of course, if the unit dies, then he's not getting this. But he's a melee, right? A melee attacker. So as a good rule of thumb going forward when you're doing your formations, we'll cover that in a second, but you're going to have your melee attack, you know, melee classes on the top, right? I mean, right there on the edge of the battlefield, waiting to hit those enemies first to soak up that damage. So you're going to have that for one, and for two, most of the enemies are going to have that same lineup. So with that being the case, he's going to be smacking tanks that are going to be bullet sponges that are going to take a lot of hits. So therefore, he's going to get those buffs. He's going to be able to stack up that attack speed and that attack power, which is going to allow him to just continuously nuke, you know, individual characters. So he's a really good unit to check out and keep an eye out on. Another one is going to be Crank. Again, just a overall decent unit. One of the big things with this game is you can only put so many units out on your formation. So because you can only put so many units out, any unit, in my opinion, that's going to summon units or summon something else or to give you something else that can add more units to your team even after the formation and the game has started, in my opinion, is a really good unit. So looking at Crank's abilities, one of the really things that I like about this is, so he deploys a turret on the battlefield. He can do this every 8 seconds is the cooldown. So he deploys a turret onto the battlefield excuse me, and the turret possesses 64% of his max HP, 100% of his attack, and 42% of his defense. The turret cannot move on the field, and it is immune to magic damage abilities. So what's really, really nice is this just adds another player to the game. Now, he can't move, but you throw the turret, he throws the turret down, boom. So you're maxed out at 8 characters. You're playing the game, boom, he throws out his turret. That's a 4th thing doing damage to the enemy team. Just a really nice ability to have. Like I said, I think with a lot of these games, any of these formation games, having something else that summons something else is really nice to add to that damage pool. Going down the list, we're going to do Lavana. So Lavana here is another really good one. She is part heals, part elementalist, so she's like a healing mage, I guess is what I would say. And the reason why that is because her ability, so Light of Faith, so 15% or 15-second cooldown. She shoots a beam randomly reflecting 7 times between enemies and allied units. So what that means is your team that's in front of her, because she's ranged, the enemy team that's in front of her or in front is going to shoot a beam, and it's going to bounce off kind of like Captain America's shield off of enemies and your own players. But as it bounces off their own players, it's going to heal your players, and then as it bounces off sorry, excuse me, geez, I need a drink. And then as it bounces off of your players, it's going to heal them, and as it bounces off enemies, it's actually going to do damage to them. And so then obviously the more enemies that it hits, the closer it maxes out to hitting 7 people, the damage reduction is going to be reduced and the healing is going to be reduced. So the last person to get hit is going to be healed less, or have the least amount of damage done to it. But really good character to look at, not a bad unit. Erib, I think one could argue that he would be maybe a little bit better than Lavana, maybe not. I think his skills are very situational, but he's got a really, really special skill that I think is awesome. Kind of similar to Gwynlim, but basically he's got a 15-second skill cooldown, makes a mist of a radius of 420. Again, that's that's Tempest's radius. And it basically does AoE damage inside, but here's the kicker, guys. It prevents or prohibits people from using their skills. Now, this is nice. This is like a silence. It's an AoE silence ability. It reduces the energy gain of enemies by 20%, which is just another added bonus. But that mist lasts for 4 seconds. So he's got a 15-second cooldown. He drops an AoE of a distance of 420, drops an AoE continuous damage. It does energy gain reduction by 20%. And the big dick one is prohibits them from using their skills. So that is just massive. I mean, that is something to take advantage of and use. Do not neglect this guy. Do not sleep on him, in my opinion. I think he could be a very, very good asset to teams, especially for shutting down teams. The next one we're going to have on the list is going to be Belial. Where is this bad boy? Where is he at? Where are you at, buddy? There he is right here. So what makes this guy really good is he, again, is another single target nuker. So what he actually does is he casts a spell on an enemy with the highest amount of energy. So he's a single target nuker that is dedicated to the enemy with the highest energy. He silences that target, which prevents them from using their abilities. And it does fixed damage per second for 10 seconds. So he's just going to do big damage to one specific unit on the team, specifically the one with the highest energy, and he prevents that person from using their abilities. So shuts them down. They can't use their abilities, and they're just going to take massive damage for 10 seconds. So again, another decent unit to keep an eye on. Don't sleep on him. Venom is another one. So looking at this guy, he throws a poison dart at a random enemy. He does damage, magical damage per second, and reduces their speed for 50% for 5 seconds. So why is this big? So it's big because it reduces their speed by 50% for 5 seconds. So that's huge. It's on a 7-second cooldown, which is a very small cooldown. He can continuously to use this for different enemies. So he's just, it can be, it can become very, obnoxious to have your whole entire team or, several of your units, their speed reduced by 50%, because that allows them to not attack as often. So that's really, really nice. Another ability that another person we have is another dragon here. I really like this guy just because for what he kind of reminds me of Spyro, like an older version of Spyro. But they did a little bit of a Game of Thrones reference in here with Dracarys, which technically, just means burn them or kill them or fire or whatever in the other language in Game of Thrones, if you're familiar with Game of Thrones, the show. But so 12-second cooldown, again, just burns the target with a flame, and does AoE damage to the surrounding enemies. The flame continues to burn for 3 seconds, dealing damage, blah, blah, blah. So even if that enemy gets hit by this flame and then moves around the board somewhere else, it's still taking damage for a total of 3 seconds, even though he's not getting hit anymore. So that's something to keep in mind. Another person is Lilith, which is down here. She is another just AoE damage dealer. So she releases a sonic wave to enemies within a radius of 420, again equal to Tempest's range, dealing damage damage over time. So again, on a 10-second cooldown, just another AoE damage dealer. So don't sleep on these heroes, guys. I think that's going to be it for the video. I hope some of those new players learn some things. Take advantage of those redemption codes, and like I said, do not sleep on synergies. You want to make sure that you are getting those synergies, whether it's for your races or your classes. That's it for me, guys, for this video. We're gonna do some more videos in the future on this game when it comes to tier list and different people to look out for, and maybe we'll do a video on formations. I've seen a lot of people asking questions about different formations and lineups and good practices and bad practices, so maybe we'll get into doing that. But anyways, guys, that'll be it for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Hit that notification bell so you get a notification every time I drop a video. I will see you guys on the next video.